1. I used to live in Orlando, in a somewhat shady part of town. The 5 deadbolts on the apartment door should have raised some flags. But I was a student, and there were a lot of students in the area, and I was young and not yet wary. Our less nice part of town bordered a very nice part of town. There was a 4 to 6 lane road that ran through the area and a jogging path that ran alongside of it. Our apartment complex was right next to the road and the trail. And a little further down was my local gas station, where I would walk once a day to buy cigarettes and other things. Because of the layout, it was easy for me to walk out my door, step on the path, and walk the 10 minutes to the gas station. Walking through the complex took longer. I often ended up taking this walk at night. Sure, I was a girl walking alone, but the path bordered this huge road with a lot of traffic, and right across the street was a busy strip mall with fast food places and such. So it wasn't like a dark path in the woods or anything. And hey, I always brought pepper spray, paid attention to my surroundings, etc. So one night I head to the gas station around 11 p.m. As I'm walking along the path, I hear something behind me. Turning around, I notice, about 30 yards behind me, there's a car on the trail. Like it had to have pulled off of the road and pulled onto the path. I'm stopped and staring, and a guy gets out of the driver's side and starts walking around the grass between the trail and the road as though he's looking for something. Oh, I think, something must have fallen out of his car, and he's pulled over to search for it. I keep walking. As I'm walking, I'm hearing something again behind me. I stop and turn. Guy is now 15 yards behind. Still no headlights, and I turn as he stops the car. Or he stops the car as I turn. Again he gets out, and it looks like he's searching for something in the grass. But he's closer now, and I'm a little creeped out. I'm not close enough to the gas station, so I pick up the pace. The next time I turn, he's even closer. He stops again when I look, but he doesn't get out of the car now. I don't want to just take off and let him know he's scared me, but I am now power walking. My pepper spray is in my hand, but what does pepper spray do against a car? I throw a look over my shoulder, and he's only a few yards behind me. He doesn't stop this time. The distance is closing. Fuck it, I take off. I judge the distance to the gas station to be too far along the trail, but there's some trees and stuff on the other side of the path from the road, so I bolt into them, through them, and through a little ditch towards the light of the station, which is now right in front of me. It felt like the dude in the car was going fast. I look behind me as I'm running through the ditch, and I see him through the space in the trees. His car slows down, and he's just cruising along the section of path I left. I continue my sprint to the gas station, where I know I'll feel safe. The owners and employees all know me. I make it out front, and I'm catching my breath, watching the part of the jogging path that meets the intersection. I see the car clearly for the first time. It's one of those brown car-truck combos, with a tan stripe along the side. Dude drives up the trail to the intersection, flips his lights on, and floors it onto the main road, disappearing. Up until that point I was running on a mix of adrenaline, and feeling that maybe I'm being stupid but better safe than sorry feeling. Once I had made it inside the gas station, I pretty much broke down shaking. To this day I still don't know what that guy's intentions were. Maybe he didn't even see me and was just looking for something. Maybe he was planning to hit me with his car and drag me off. Maybe he was an asshole that was just trying to scare me. Either way, I had my boyfriend come get me from the gas station, and I've never walked alone at night again. 2. My family and I could use some advice. So for about the past 12 days there have been probably isolated and unrelated, but still weird events happening at my family home on the outskirts of the neighborhood. And I'm just going to detail it here. Hopefully to get some opinions and that kind of thing. And yeah, we have reported it, but police dispatches weren't able to find anyone. I've been visited by 2 strange people recently, one of which said they were from down south, drove off like hell once my mother caught him, and the other one saying he's from the trailer park, a crime-ridden filthy area, and gives us his business card before driving off, although not as fast. And before all this, I had a group of people coming to ask to look at my house because they had heard it was for sale, and no, it's been off the market for a decade. It all started about a month ago, with this strange family in a white SUV that pulled up to the house about a month ago. While my parents were away, I was home. Their leader was this skinny old woman with sores on her face that looked like a meth addict, and she was like, "Hi, we're here to buy the house. I heard this house was for sale." She and the others were basically trying to get into my house, even though there's no for sale signs, and my house has a no trespassing sign in the driveway. My state does not really have trespassing laws, but still. This happened before, and possibly of the same family about a year ago. Around the same time, a year before that too. But I didn't meet them, my brothers and sisters did. They brought their dog with them and overall just scared me. It was just me, home alone, with a, at the time, broken phone and a police flashlight. I have weapons now, but at the time I had nothing. Versus these 4 adults, their kid, and a big German shepherd. I thankfully was smart enough not to let them inside. But they stood out on the porch heckling me, and my phone wasn't working, so I couldn't call the police. My family wouldn't be home for a few hours yet either, so I opted to just act like a crazy person and yelled at them that this was private property and I was going to call the police on them if they continued to linger. So that scared them off enough for them to get into the car, a white SUV, important later, and pull out. Another note is that they asked me where my family was. Like, what? About a month later, and a couple days before present time, something interesting happens. Also with both of these strange visitor incidents, it was in the daytime, or dusk while people were at home. Lights were on, car was in the driveway, no open windows or doors. Like nothing to invite burglars. A strange car pulled into the driveway while my old mother and I were home. I was half asleep, so I thought, oh, it must be my parents home from work early. But I was dead wrong. My mom burst into my room in a panic, telling me that there was someone in our driveway. Interestingly enough, also a white SUV. But this one had a giant green tarp on the top. But my mom theorizes it may be the same as the old people's one based on the photo I showed her of it. She realized that our lives might be in danger, or he might try breaking in. So she had to make a choice and she decided to go confront him, even though she didn't have a weapon at the time. Before she went out though, she peeks out the window. There's this 40-year-old, well-groomed, rich-looking man. His car is in the driveway. My mom didn't even hear him come as he coasted really slowly into the driveway, like he snuck in. Scary. With the driver's door left open. And he's just pacing. Literal visual definition of casing a house to rob it. But what's so weird about that is that there were lights on and he could probably see forms of people, me and my mom, in the window. Our car was in the driveway. There's a no trespassing sign, no open windows, no open doors. Like out of every house to rob in my street, why this one? Especially because my house is surrounded by much richer, fancier ones. I'm not saying it's impossible, just odd. So here's where the meat is. My mom goes out, and the guy is sitting in his SUV with the driver's door open for the entire exchange. My mom just asks him what he's doing, not in a mean way like I did with the real estate people, to scare them off. Nah, she was super polite at first, although direct. But the guy had the most aggressive demeanor imaginable, and he wasn't a weird addict or insane. He was a little more like that smart, composed sociopath type, like, "Oh yeah, I'm trespassing here? What are you gonna do about it?" Not literally, but you get what I mean. He tells her that he's here for duck hunting, ignoring the fact that he's not dressed like a duck hunter, doesn't look like one, probably didn't have hunting gear in the truck other than a green camping tarp on the roof ceiling. Think about it after some more context. I live in the middle of Minnesota farm fields that are all owned by big companies. There aren't really any ducks. It's also winter. But even ignoring that, there are farm departments, barns, equipment, companies, all over the place where I live. And a fair amount of houses. How does this guy not see it? How does he not consider that the people who drive by constantly, or the people working out in the fields, are going to see if he does try something with this particular house? Why does he even stop at a house? There are so many places to pull over, but he chooses our driveway like. Why did he stop at the house and pace around like a criminal, not knocking on the door? His excuse is that he wants to figure out whether to hunt ducks here. I realize this might seem minor to other people, but because this is similar to other incidents we've had at the house, and arguably the most dangerous and suspicious one, I am really concerned. So, at this point, my mom is like, oh shit, red flag. So she goes along with it. Oh, you're looking for places to hunt. Well, these fields don't really have any ducks, and I don't think hunting is allowed here. You could go ask the big farm company's permission. And he's like, oh yeah, I know. The Lestranges, right? Red flag number 2, he was making shit up. He got the names all wrong, like he was just guessing and pulling things out of his ass. He was acting like the literal definition of someone who got busted. For what? I'm not sure. But busted. My mom is terrified at this point, though like he could have just shot her or kidnapped her at any point here. So she asks his name. He says Ryan something, but again dodges the question. She asks for his driver's license so she can identify him. He ignores her and turns the car engine back on. He had been sneakily parked in our driveway out walking around previously. She's like, oh hell no, yells at him that she's going to get his license plates and that he's trespassing. And here's even more suspicious. Remember how I said about getaway? He vroom vrooms out of there full speed race car speed vroom in under 30 seconds. He pulls out so fast he almost hits her and almost crashes into a car that was on the road. Speaking of cars, there was another car parked 40 feet away from the house on the field while this was happening. Also strange, but anyway, Ryan drove off at full speed, and my mom couldn't see his license plate because of how fast he left, and also it had gotten dark. My mom wasn't wearing her glasses. She's partially blind, so he got away, but again he skedaddled. Like, not an, oops, I'm confused, haha, see you later, thanks, but oh fuck, I got busted, run. And then she called the police, but they were not able to find or catch the man. Fast forward 10 days, and we have another incident involving people coming up to the door. A man pulls up in a truck and asks my brother, who answers the door. He asks, hey, I'm looking for work, I'm a handyman. I see you left your truck bed out on the porch and your car looks like it might have a flat tire. Which, while these things were true, we had a perfectly fine looking car in the front and also no trespassing sign. Granted, we don't have a no soliciting sign, but he got really close to the door. My brother took his business card and was like, no thanks, and the guy left. Not a super fast speed like the duck man, but the guy said he was from the trailer park. That's not good. The most recent encounter happened the day after the businessman, and it is the one that prompted me to start cataloguing it here on Reddit. Was that a black SUV went down our street very slowly at about 3 p.m. It stopped and had the window rolled down. It was parked about 40 feet from our house. I managed to get a photo of it, but the thing is, it was there for a while. It started slowly pulling towards our house, almost like it was going to drift into the driveway. My sister looked out the window confused at it, and I did as well. And as soon as it saw our faces, it drove off. Not at an extremely fast speed, but that's an odd coincidence. I mean, no one's broken into our house yet. But another thing is that there were 2 cars parked away from the store my brother runs, in a rather isolated location 2 times. Probably nothing. But one of the cars was stopped by a police officer patrolling the area. I think it's very unlikely that my family could have a stalker or something along those lines, but I believe there may be strange people potentially working in a group, casing my home or where my family lives. 3. Let me just preface this story as to why I was traveling alone. So one of my best friends, Kyla, and I work seasonally at a hiking lodge in BC for the summer. We're both girls in our early 20s. She lives and goes to school in New Brunswick, and I live and work as a chef in Toronto for the winter. We decided this year, as I bought a car, instead of flying back home, we would do an epic Canadian coast-to-coast road trip. Everything was going wonderfully, so wonderfully in fact, we ended up staying longer in a few unexpected places, and had to cut our East Coast portion of the trip short. Now my friend Kyla started her schooling on November 1st, so I dropped her home in Moncton, New Brunswick on Halloween, and stayed the night at her place, planning to head back to Toronto the next day. After a few glasses of Chardonnay and some laughs, I decided I couldn't come this close to the East Coast and not see the Cabot Trail in Nova Scotia. Something that has been on my bucket list for years. So knowing I still had a week more of vacation before my winter contract, I hastily booked a hostel for the next day, November 1st, at the Acolyte Hostel on the Cabot Trail. When I booked, only one option came up, I assumed because I waited until the last minute to book, a private dorm with a queen-sized bed for $35. I thought, what a bargain, and booked immediately. I left Kyla's house in Moncton at 7 a.m, knowing it was a long drive. Now, the Cabot Trail is roughly 150 kilometers long, so I thought I'd be safe. I'd plug the hostel address into my Google Maps and head straight there to get my bearings. I would arrive at the hostel for roughly noon. Knowing it was too early to check in, I figured I'd consult with front desk and figure out the nearby hiking trails and bring my bags in later. I was about to arrive at my hostel, according to Google, but all around me was nothing but farmland. Google instructed me that the destination is on your left. I saw nothing. About 50 yards up the road, I saw a wire bar bent to look like the letter A, spray-painted bright red. I was staying at the Acolyte Hostel, so I guessed that must be the place. I followed a dirt road. It led me to what I can only describe as a dilapidated barn. No signage. There were 2 cars parked in front, so I parked alongside and got out of my car to try and figure out where I was. Once I got out, a smallish man, around mid-40s, with dark hair and intense eyes, popped out of the barn and asked me if I was staying with them tonight. I said yes. He asked why I booked so last minute, and I explained to him my situation. Seemingly satisfied with my answer, he insisted on taking me on the grand tour of the barn. The first thing I noticed was that the entry of the barn had been dug out around its foundation, about 5 feet deep and 3 feet around. He led me across some particle board laid down as a sort of ramp leading inside. The second thing I noticed about the property is that there were no windows. This was clearly a barn meant for livestock. The gentleman leading me on this tour was named Kevin, the owner. He proceeded to tell me his grand plans for the space. It all seemed pretty far-fetched, as it was just a big old barn with particle boards separating most of the rooms. He led me up the skeleton stairs made of plywood and 2x4s to the cabin loft, where I would be sleeping that night along with his family. The mother of his 5-year-old son, his son, and Kevin's own mother, who insisted I call her Mom. The upstairs was certainly open concept. A frail curtain separated the beds to the sides, with a large open area in the middle. I asked if I was his only occupant that night. He said yes. I had a feeling he didn't often get occupants. I told him I was interested in the hikes in the area, and I wanted to get to them before it got dark. He gave me very detailed instructions of his favorite hikes and how to get to them, and off I went. I figured the place wasn't ideal, and I wished the website would have let me know it was still being built. But hey, I booked last minute and beggars can't be choosers. Plus, he was very friendly and helpful on my hiking advice. I hiked the area until it started getting dark. I didn't pack enough food for the day, but I figured I'd head into town for dinner. The nearest town was clearly a booming tourist destination during the summer, but now in the off-season it was a ghost town. All the hotels and B&Bs in the area were boarded up. Such a ghost town, even the liquor store was closed off for the season. Finally, I found a dark, dingy, empty bar to eat dinner. It was, to phrase lightly, a disappointing supper. I had this romantic image in my head of me sitting on the harbour front, sipping on bubblies, slurping back some ocean-fresh oysters. I was assured by the server/bartender/cook the fried oysters I had ordered were definitely not fresh. I didn't ask. I figure with all my options for things to do and see exhausted, I should just head back to the hostel and read my book. I got back for roughly 8 p.m. I could smell the family that lived there was in the midst of cooking dinner. A little boy ran down the wood steps to greet me. He yelled, as little boys always do, "My name is JP, what's yours?" I say, "Nice to meet you, JP, my name is Alex." He immediately asked if I wanted to come play. I said, "Definitely, just let me put my bags down in my room first." He followed me through the translucent curtains to my room. So instead of getting settled in, I just headed out to the main area. I started throwing a foam ball around with JP. His mother, father, Kevin, and grandmother, Mom, were all just sitting down to eat without even acknowledging we were there, playing in front of them. The mother and father just start what seems to be a basic argument, which then turns into them yelling at each other. Completely weirded out, I told JP I need to go to my room and call my mommy as she is wondering where I am. Of course, the boy who doesn't understand proper boundaries yet follows me through the curtains and sits on my bed. I try taking his attention away from his family fighting, so I start asking him where he goes to school, his favorite color, etc. His mother starts calling for him. He doesn't answer. Instead, chooses to sit in my lap and hug me. Not wanting to cause any problems, I yell to the mother he's in my room. She runs in and snatches him off my lap and yells to the father, "I know what you're like when you get this angry. I'm taking JP, don't follow us." I hear her book it down the stairs and him run after her. I hear a car start up in the lot. And not just drive, but fucking peel out of that driveway. I hear him cursing. A door slams. And then the sound of the excavator I had seen outside earlier that day came on. I guess he wanted to do some handiwork to let off some steam. Now just left upstairs is me and Grandma, who still insisted I call her Mom. I walk out of my not-so-private curtained room with my bag and say, "Listen, you guys have been great hosts, but I should go." She starts rubbing my arm and telling me to stay, explaining her daughter-in-law doesn't understand Kevin like she does, and she's the real problem. Now I'm ready to tell Mom to fuck right off and just leave, until I realize she still has a knife in her hand from cooking dinner. It's only a 4-inch paring knife, but with intent, I'm sure it would do some damage. I don't think she meant it as a threat. I think she was just a cookie old bird who didn't understand, maybe, don't hold a knife while trying to console a stranger. So I go along with what she is saying, while she rubs my arm with one hand, and flails the knife around in the other. I inch closer and closer downstairs and toward the door. She keeps rubbing my arm and shoulders with her free hand, telling me to stay, that her grandson is special, and before I even booked the night, he had a premonition I would be staying with them. As soon as I get out of the door, I run towards my car. I start my engine and back up in the lot to get out of there. Kevin in the excavator blocks the path. With about a 5-foot ditch on one side of the drive and forest behind me, he gets out. Says he's sorry and tells me I should stay, he'll make it up to me. Grandma comes out with the knife still in hand, saying it's Kevin's fault I'm leaving. They bicker for about 5 minutes, until I yell if they don't let me leave, I'm calling the police. All of a sudden they get super defensive, like I'm the one being unreasonable. So I turn off my engine and start to dial. Kevin gets back in his excavator and starts backing up. As soon as he's far enough I can see an opening to drive across the grass, I turn my engine back on and rip out of the drive. I'm sure doing a number on the suspension of my little sedan. As soon as the property is out of sight, I go to call my friend Kyla. No service. I remembered back to earlier in the afternoon when I first got to the hostel. I was going to check my messages and saw the no service sign. Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't have been able to call the cops. I drove the 6 hours straight to Moncton, New Brunswick, and stayed with Kyla. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 253. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I'm just going to cut this outro pretty short. My throat's a bit rough today. I just wanted to let everybody know that I appreciate everything, all the comments and everything, and all the stories. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.